Didn't take long, did it? It was less than an hour or so after the news came out that Joe Biden said he was dropping out and supporting Kamala Harris that Fox went right after her. I mean, they have to. It's Fox.
Kamala Harris has not won a single primary. She hasn't persuaded a single delegate. She tried to run in the 2020 cycle, and we all remember she was utterly humiliated, dropping out even before the Iowa caucuses. And according to the regime media, her performance as VP has been pretty abysmal.
The Democrats and Kamala Harris have found the only person in politics who has a favorable rating lower than Joe Biden's.
And this is politics. When a vice president is running for president after the president says they're leaving or they've done their 8 years, that vice president talks about the successes of their administration. Even though the vice president, per the Constitution, has no other authority other than what the president gives them, or to preside over the Senate, which they don't really do now, and become president when the president passes away in office. Well, now they have to tie in the entire Biden administration to Harris. And one way that Fox is doing it is by calling her a San Francisco liberal and talking about immigrants.
A San Francisco liberal who failed the nation and let in all the tens of millions of people across the southern border that she was in charge of, who supported Joe Biden's big spending, inflation-creating measures on Capitol Hill, and is weak and soft on crime.
You see what he's doing? He's talking about crime. He's calling her a San Francisco liberal. And you know the conservatives hate California and they really hate San Francisco. And they talked about immigrants. Now he's got to talk about black people.
This is a vice president, Kamala Harris, who in 2020, after the George Floyd riots, paid to bail out arsonists.
Then they bring on another guy who wants to let the Fox viewers know she's not like us. And one way to do that is to flub her name. Nice soft tone, but flubs her name. No different than what they did to Barack Hussein Obama.
But it's still a lot of time between now and November 5th in terms of how long Kamala Harris has to run this campaign without reminding voters of her true self.
And to cap it all off, they got to go back to the 2020 and the 2016 campaign, and even so far as going back to the 2008 campaign, to say we got to get rid of one person that's in charge of all of this. I mean, this is part of what Fox does.
We've been sitting here wondering for years who's actually running the country, and it turns out that Nancy Pelosi is running the country. She's the one who's ordering Joe Biden to do what it is that he does. And she says, get out of the race. He gets out of the race. And she is the oldest of them all. She's 84 years old.
Do you see how it all changes? Now that the Democrats may have the person to run against Trump, Fox gets scared. And so now they got to go out and say, hey, Trump, this is what you need to attack her on. So they do this whole report. And this is just one show. You got to go through all of Fox. And when it comes to the Democrats, again, they need to rally around Kamala Harris. It's also being reported that about 5 or 6 states have already pledged their delegates to Kamala prior to the convention. So let's stop playing around. Go and all the states' delegates say, hey, we're going to support Kamala Harris. And then as a surprise, let her go through her vetting process for her VP candidate. And on the last day of her, on the last day of the convention, have her introduce her VP and then hit the ground running. So everybody's out there supporting the Harris, whomever campaign for 2024. Republicans, Fox, Trump running scared now. Let's get it. What do you think?